Some people are never going to be wealthy, and this is usually because of things they can't change about themselves. Things like your hometown, the circumstances of your birth, or even who your parents are. I'm going to explain why you don't have to stress about those factors anymore. And if you truly want to learn, then watch this video to the end. Welcome to the Luxury Life channel, the place where future billionaires come to derive inspiration. The billionaires of represent way less than 0.001% of the world's population and reflect their quality of life. For example, if you're in the top 20%, it means you have a high quality of life, while being poor is being part of the bottom 20%. Everyone in the middle is called the middle class world, which can be broken into upper and lower middle class, but that's not of interest to you. Being wealthy is relative. You are only rich if you have more than 80% of the population to compare your income or wealth against. It really means that you've made it big. This rule applies at both a global and local level. If only 20% of people who live in high-income countries make it to the top, then 80% of the population is basically never going to get rich. Sure, you might say that this means you're better than others if you had managed to make it big from a low-income country, but technically, if you compare the quality of life we enjoy today from a time perspective, almost everyone on planet Earth has a higher standard of living today than someone who lived in the last 100 years. Here's where the mind-blowing part happens. Unless you're in the 0.001% of the bottom of the population, you're enjoying a higher quality of life than most kings and queens that ever lived. This is not entirely accurate. Early monarchs could employ physicians and health specialists to provide treatment for illnesses. Furthermore, life expectancy varied across the Middle Ages and by time period. For example, in the year 1050, it was 40 years old, and in the 1800s, it was 55 years old. It took 200 more years for us to begin developing medicine. So literally, we currently living better than medieval kings, with our cell phones, electricity, access to water, travel, and without slavery for quite a while now, but you don't feel rich because the top 20% rule applies. You only feel rich if you're doing better than your peers. You might be wondering, so what does it take to make it to the top 20%? And why aren't more people willing to do whatever it takes? Well, it boils down to two simple truths, and one of them is a lot harder to digest than the other. And here's why most people don't make the leap into the top 20% in terms of living conditions. On a macro scale, it's about access to resources, information, religious culture, and infrastructure. This is why everyone in Switzerland, with Switzerland's GDP per capita at 86,601, $56 is considered rich compared to everyone in South Sudan GDP per capita at $700. Poor people love this argument because the reason for their poverty lies, generally speaking, outside of their control. The government is corrupt, and instead of building effective departments to better the population, they're wasting money and keeping everyone poor, which is factually true in most of these third-world countries like Nigeria and some others. But there's a second truth that's a lot harder to digest, because this time it's not on a macro level, but it boils down to your local community. On a micro scale, the reason why most people don't become locally rich is that they aren't willing to learn and make the sacrifices required for success. It is only a small subset of the population, usually male, who are willing to sacrifice decades of their lives, embrace high levels of risk with a very small chance of success, to break out of the general population for financial and societal gain. This happens both in rich countries and poor countries. It's true that people who come from nothing can achieve success. We all know of countless cases where an individual outstretched their potential and became successful. What most of us seem to ignore is the amount of sacrifice and discipline it takes to make this leap. If the biggest factor keeping you in poverty is geographical, It usually requires leaving your roots behind in order to relocate to places with more opportunities. It's incredibly hard leaving your hometown, leaving the familiar space and venturing into the unknown on your own. And guess what? Over 80% of the population are not willing to take that kind of risk. Unfortunately, this is one of the main reasons why 80% of people would remain poor. Yeah, I know for sure 80% is a lot, but you just have to take risks. Never be afraid of mistakes. Willing to learn, be creative, productive, read books, hang around smart people, and do whatever it takes to become successful, and very importantly, avoid gambling. Since reading is so important to becoming successful, I'll recommend these books for you to read. 1. Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. This book teaches you important lessons about money and why the poor are getting poorer and how the rich are getting richer. 2. The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason teaches you about the golden rules of money. These rules have been in existence for hundreds of years, haven't changed for hundreds of years, and won't change for hundreds of years. This book teaches you how to pay yourself first and many other lessons that makes the rich richer. Number 3. The Success System That Never Fails by W. Clement Stone. This book teaches principles on how people become rich and stay rich. Getting rich is quite easy. Staying rich is the hard part. When you read this book, you would gain timeless lessons on how to become successful and stay successful even in hard times. In fact, there's a section in the book that teaches you how to build a trillion-dollar business. Trillion-dollar business like Apple, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Tesla. You get the point. Number 4. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Written in 1937, this book teaches you about mindsets and setting the right mindset to becoming rich, and how anybody can become rich regardless of where you're born in the world. Lastly, Atomic Habits by James Clear. In this book, James Clear distills the most fundamental information about habit formation, so you can accomplish more by focusing on less. If you watch this video to this very part, then you're probably hungry for success. Consider subscribing and tapping that like button so that this video can reach a great deal of people and help them take action that would change their lives. Remember that there are millions in poverty. I have the links to all the books in the description below. Now that you're armed with this information, go and excel. See you on the next video.